The legacy of years of frustration and anger spilled out onto the streets as the Tibetan capital of Lhasa was gripped by the worst violence in 20 years. A day in which the Tibetan people stood up against the army and the police, as huge crowds took to the streets, testing China's grip on this mountain region. It was the culmination of 5 days of escalating demonstrations marking the anniversary of China's invasion. Gunfire was heard throughout the afternoon and shops owned by Chinese traders were torched. Eyewitnesses spoke of widespread arrests and tanks and military vehicles on the streets. In Brussels, the foreign minister urged restraint.
There are real strains there, but they need to be addressed in a way that balances restraint and dialogue.
It's been 20 years since the monks of Tibet openly defied the Chinese troops and police in such numbers. In 1989, hundreds were arrested and many injured as the security forces, led by the then local communist boss, Hu Jintao, now China's president, moved in strength to quell the protest. In Beijing, a top official promised to use harsh measures to deal with further demonstrations, which he claimed were organized from overseas.
The plot of the Dali clique is doomed to fail. Tibet will not be prevented from its development and progress by any power.
But now, in this Olympic year, the campaign in support of the people of Tibet has gone global. This demonstration outside the Chinese embassy in London was one of a worldwide series of protests calling for an end to Chinese rule in the remote Buddhist region. In India, hundreds of monks were arrested as they began a trek back to the homeland. Indian police, sensitive to China's embarrassment at demonstrations on its borders, scooped up the protesters. All are now on hunger strike, the detention center ringed by their supporters. This is a protest whose time has come. The Chinese consulate in New York was also under siege by Tibetan activists condemning Beijing's hosting of the Olympic Games. This is turning into China's pre-Olympic nightmare. It's promised to crack down hard in Tibet, but what the government must weigh up is whether China's image pre the Games can cope with international condemnation. Peter Sharp, Sky News in Beijing.